Welcome to Prepare for the Unexpected. Today we are talking with Rina Singh, head of resilience and host of the Resilience Pod podcast. Rina, welcome back.
Thank you. So excited.
Now, in our first segment, we talked about your own personal journey, how you got
Mhm,
started and stepping outside your comfort zone. Let's dig into a little bit more on the business continuity side.
mhm.
I've got some questions for you here.
Great.
How do you explain the real value of business continuity to leaders who see it as a tick box exercise?
Mm. And this is this is such a common thing that leaders see, or anyone in the business. Forget leaders, anyone that you're talking to operationally. And I tell people that business continuity isn't about compliance; it's about confidence. So it's not about compliance; it's about the confidence. So it's the difference between hoping that things will be fine and knowing that you can handle whatever comes next. So it's the capability piece that's really important, and something between compliance and confidence, they're very separate things. I like to pitch it that way.
What do you tell them to get them to think differently? Because we have, and no offense to auditors or anything like that,
Yeah.
auditors who come along saying you should have or thou shall do A, B, and C.
Hmm.
And you look at standards and guidelines that are out there, and it's same thing. You should demonstrate A, B, and C. So
Hmm.
when you have that kind of um, guide, guidance that's
Hmm.
out there, it's natural to think, well, if I have this, then we're done.
Mm. And I think that makes it become more of a compliance checkbox activity. And if your program's certified to 22301, for example, you don't have to go and use that as an opener. You can adopt an invisible framework with whatever process you're following. So you don't have to tell everyone, oh, section 2.3 of ISO 22301 says you have to do this. No, we're doing this because resilience we need to be a resilient business. We need to change our behavior, and we need to have a plan. We need to know what our business, our minimum viable like company is. For example, we need to know that actually when something happens, which of the teams are going to get prioritized first, and then that behavior piece, Alex, is really important because that's what then helps people understand that, oh, actually, if I engage in this and I don't see it as that checkbox compliance exercise, that I'm actually helping my business become resilient because I'm assisting in that knowledge gathering rather than being the blocker in it. So,
So, what kind of things have would you recommend to try and get people to change that behavior?
mhm.
Because
Yeah.
that could be a culture thing too,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
really large, difficult to
It's
change.
really easy to sit here and say, "Oh, just do an invisible framework," and you don't know how. I've written a whole paper on this, by the way, a white paper on this, where I implemented it in real life in a business. But what I generally do is when most practitioners, when I was in my practitioner days, not doing more strategic stuff as I do now, it was very much, well, why am I doing all this work? Why does it matter? People need to understand the why and the bigger picture. How often have you gone into sessions and not explained the whole process for capturing business continuity decisions? Or have you just gone, we're doing a BIA, that's it, where does the rest of it, how does it fit into the bigger picture? No, no, most people don't. They just think very granularly. So, what's the bigger picture, how it links to our strategic objectives, where you fit in, and what the information is going to be used for, and why it really helps people understand why you're asking for that information. What I've done is what I've said so many times throughout the years is resiliency through relationships. So go and have that conversation in person. I mean, I know it's a bit different now because we're still doing hybrid, but have that chat. Like, what do your team do? What are the pain points? Okay, how can I help alleviate some of those pain points? I might be through this process for business continuity. We might even help you find an efficiency process where your workarounds are way better than what you're doing now. So it's spending the time to get to know your stakeholders that you're going to be working so closely with, explaining the why, the bigger picture, who you are, which is then going to get that buy-in and change the culture. It's piecemeal. You have to do it bit by bit, divide and conquer, as they say, because yes, it has to come from the top, but you don't want it to be a right, the CEO said this, it's a dictatorship, because we don't like to follow rules mostly, right? I'm not going to do it because you told me to. It's I'm going to do it because I understand why I have to do it and some of the benefits that it's going to get to. And when you get to exercising, it's that you can pitch it that that's going to be the best fun thing. And genuinely, if you share stories of real life situations happening in your business and use that as a caveat of this happened and we did this, it makes your role so much more interesting. And that's what I do now in the business that I work for, because I head up the business resilience team, and that involves crisis management, disaster recovery, business continuity. And I tell people, like, we had this incident at the site and we did XYZ. We worked with facilities, we worked with the people team, security, physical security. We had these issues, and everyone's like, oh wow, I didn't know how to think about that, or the landlord. And then we invoked business continuity plans and so forth. So it's sharing. Actually, this isn't a theoretical exercise, it's something that has happened in our business in whatever form that you have.
That is what I like about our role is that
Yeah,
we do get to talk with so many different teams. When I first started
yeah.
a couple of years ago, um, it was just dealing with, a couple of people in the business unit. But then it grew, like you
Mhm.
said, to
Yeah,
facilities, security,
yeah,
IT, and all these other groups. And now I can actually have a conversation with technology uh,
yeah,
representatives that I wouldn't have been able to have back then,
exactly.
and ask different questions and building that network so that everyone understands how they actually work
Mhm.
together. It's not an us and them type situation. It's all of us. We have to work together.
And also, it's selling the value of the information you're collecting, right? And then I know we might talk about this later, but it's the how we collect a lot of data in specifically business continuity. How are you using that data intelligently to help business? Where are you showing the dependencies that, oh, there's 60 teams that are relying on this one team or this one platform? We need to have investment in this. How are you showing those dependencies upstream and downstream? How are you then using it at a more strategic level in a crisis? Are you pulling out what a strategic BIA now? I know there's loads of people don't like that word or whatever, but actually, are you using them intelligently to say, look, we saved so much hassle in this incident because we had all this data and it was really useful? Are you utilizing that? Are you leveraging that? Is a question to ask yourself when you go back to your business.
Yeah, I've always struggled not quite understanding why some BIAs, when performed, we're not leveraging that information in
Hmm.
other spots. I do.
Yeah.
I tried to, even when I had a client years ago. They had a BIA. You had to go through and ask all these questions and
Hmm.
change it. But I said, so where are we using this information then? Because if you're asking for all these top priority people,
Yeah.
that where are they showing up somewhere else? And
Yeah.
I said, we got to use this information. Otherwise, it just looks like an asset management tool,
Yeah.
just collecting
Yeah.
information, doing nothing with it.
Yeah, and then that goes back to that's why people think, leadership think, or even at all ground level and at all levels, that it's a compliance activity because you're just gathering it and it's sitting there and it's stale and you're not actually using it intelligently to help people make informed decisions. That's where there's a real big opportunity to utilize the data. And everyone in the industry now is talking about minimal viable business, product, company, whatever you want to call it, same thing. Why aren't you using that?
Yeah, yeah.
We've done the work. We can actually should be selling ourselves to like cyber, for example, and saying, actually, if there's a cyber attack, we've from a business continuity perspective, we've done minimum viable company, focus on the recovery of these first. And it's really prevalent because I went to a conference last year and they were talking about this, and I thought, well, I've got this from a business continuity perspective. So why are we starting from scratch? Why would the cyber team do this? So very interesting kind of how other disciplines other than business continuity are thinking about the same thing. So for me, the takeaway from this part is go and talk to other teams and then share the data.
And I guess to further that point, that kind of proves the point that maybe sometimes we're not getting our full message out there. Because
Hmm.
if cyber is turning around and doing or asking the questions of stuff we already are doing or have available, it's because they don't know that it's there, that we have
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. So it's a key role. You need to not only just do the work, you need to raise awareness too.
Yeah,
It's a social job.
it is. It can be very
A social
social,
job.
you
Yeah.
know, because really you've got the whole organization on your shoulders sometimes. At least it feels
Hmm.
like that. You know, you have
Yeah.
to know how it all works and fits
Hmm.
together so that if you pull one piece out, you
Hmm.
know what that means and
Yeah.
understand what the impacts are.
Yeah. Love
So,
it.
my last question for you for this one is, what are there any misconceptions about business continuity that you still run into outside of the tick box mentality sometimes?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it'll be controversial or not, that people will follow the plan in a real incident is a common misconception, but they won't. You won't. I've not done it in a recent incident as much as I've wanted to, because in a high stress environment, like your behavior changes psychologically, so you default to instinct and what you've rehearsed, basically, or not rehearsed. So that the stress changes your brain, right? So you're not going to be flicking through a document. Actually, I remember one time one time I was going to my cousin's house for dinner and something went down at work. It was 6 p.m. I'm in the car, and I'm in the car driving along, like trying to find a situational report, and then I used the wrong one because it was just high stakes. So it's actually, how do I behave and what do I know is key. So we yes, a plan is there, but I think people thinking that it's they're going to use it in an incident also is a bit of a common misconception, I would say.
True. And if we've done a good job at socializing as well and training and awareness, you don't need to pull out the plan to validate what you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's about capability, right? Through training and exercising, and that's going to be like my theme of what I'm saying here. It's knowing what the right thing to do is and demonstrating the right behaviors when that high impact stress comes in, because you've spent so much time building yourself that capability, and that's where resilience comes in. It's not the plan or the structure; it's the behavior that you've learned that will help you guide you through an incident or a crisis or any situation that you go through, not only in a business, but personally too.
Yeah. On that, we've come to the end of our second segment. Rena, thank you so much for joining us. We
No
will be
worries.
right back.
Thank you.